On the surface, this is actually a really good idea. So for added context, because I know the comment usually gets cut off on the screen, essentially what this is saying is that Valaman was probably a slave for the Holy Nation, and that his methods of indoctrination and enslavement is very similar to the Holy Nation. And so they probably were a slave for the Holy Nation, and they're just replicating what they saw as a member of the Holy Nation. And that would also explain why the Reaver slaves are some of the hardest to free and get them to escape, because the indoctrination is so intense, and it was probably learned from the Holy Nation. And it also suggests that the reason why the Reaver slaves are the hardest to join you amongst all the other slave factions may be because of that, or it may also just be the byproduct of a bug. But the truth is that as I was exploring the Reavers, trying to figure out their story and determine how they came to be, I started to drift away from this theory as well, because originally this is what I thought. This was what I thought going into the theory, and things kind of started to change as I investigated, and I'll expand on that right now. So first things first, the Holy Nation and the Reavers both do kidnap people and enslave them, but other than that, the similarities between the two pretty much end there in terms of their enslavement process and their indoctrination. The Holy Nation doesn't kidnap people and enslave them to indoctrinate them amongst the ranks of the Holy Nation. They bring them to Rebirth to work in a work camp as a form of like cleansing or purgatory, where they can work off the darkness of their soul until they end up dying. In their mind, they're helping them. They're doing a good thing. They are giving them the opportunity to cleanse their soul of the darkness that fills them by making them work in Rebirth for the betterment of the Holy Nation. Whereas the Reavers are kidnapping people, and they are literally using actual psychological tactics, things that have been used in real life, to indoctrinate them through basically inducing Stockholm Syndrome in their captives until they become devoutly loyal to them. And this is done through a number of methods, things like physical torture, the withholding of food and water, rewarding good and bad behavior, numerous tests. Like, they do things specifically to create a sense of attachment and a sense of reliance between the captor and the captive. These are all done very strategically on the part of the Reavers. And you can see this as evidence in dialogue packages when the younger or less experienced Reavers will fall in battle, or someone will try to escape, and the higher ranking Reavers will threaten them, saying that they won't get food tonight, or they'll get an extra beating, or something like that. There is a negative response for disloyalty, and then there is a blatant positive response for loyalty, and it creates that bond, that sense of needing, of reliance. It is full-on torture, full-on psychological manipulation. It's a cult-like Stockholm Syndrome type deal. Now, as for whether or not Valaman was a Holy Nation slave, I thought maybe originally he was a slave, if not for the Holy Nation, then it was for the Empire, but there's a couple of reasons that I don't think that's the case. One, have you seen that man's stats? There's no way in hell that he was a slave. I don't see anybody reasonably being able to take him down. His stats are comparable to some of the strongest people on Kenshi. But aside from that, the presence of his horns make me think probably not. Those things are long. And the reality is that when a Shek is taken into slavery, their horns are cut off, and Valaman still has his. And when you mix all of that stuff together in conjunction with his rhetoric that is very reminiscent to the Shek, I don't see him being a slave for the Holy Nation. I see him being a former Shek.